I'm Tom Vessel. Welcome to Week in Review, where the Dice Tower team tells you about the various videos we put out over the past week, giving you short summaries of each of them. And then, if you want to see the full thing, click the link in the description below. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, I'm Z Garcia. Here's what I did last week. So I took a look at the new 51st State Ultimate Edition, and I just looked at the pieces. Didn't review that proper because I've reviewed it and all the content in it, but I showed you the way it all looks, the insert, and what I think of it as a whole package if you're jumping into it right now with all of the content available to the game, 51st State. And then I reviewed Exhibition 20th Century, which I gave a 6-2. This is a Racco-style game, organizing cards, in which you are drafting these year cards, anywhere from 1900 to 1999, and putting them on a player board in front of you, trying to follow some rules as to where you can play. And then once you're done doing all of that, which is pretty fun, then you score at the end of the game in a way that feels too unrelated to the things you were doing in the game. And that was my main issue with it. I wish that the fun I had following the restrictions, knowing what to pick and where to move and how to manipulate all of this would have translated to a more fun game experience at the end. The scoring was just so disconnected and disjointed that I didn't quite get the full package. I reviewed Oh My Orchids, which I gave a 6-2. It's a very by-the-numbers set collecting game in which you are drafting seeds by color or by type and then spending those for a flower. 3 of the same color. 4 all different colors. A set of 3 and a different set of 3. I mean, like, very, very by-the-number things. And I just thought it didn't really bring anything new to the table. It's perfectly pleasant. It is attractive. It plays well and is clean. It is also a game I feel I've played, probably many times. And then lastly, I reviewed the latest expansion to 51st State. This is No Man's Land, and I loved it. I gave it a 9. This is in that Ultimate Edition, by the way, so if you pick that up, it's in there already. But you can also get this on its own for one of the previous printings of 51st State Master Set. In this one, they add a sort of a side game in which you are controlling land, No Man's Land, and you are going to be reaping rewards from doing that. It's a little more confrontational than the base game because you can now fight over those locations, but interestingly, it feels less cutthroat and less mean. It did to me anyway. And I liked that about it because I don't necessarily love particularly aggressive 51st State plays. You know, having something you've built up to then have it destroyed doesn't feel great. But in this game, you still get to be aggressive. You still get to destroy and take things over from other players, and it doesn't feel as bad because they're not messing with your main stuff. I really like it. I thought it was a fantastic expansion. One of my favorites for the game so far. So there you go. That's it for me. I'll see you on the next one.
Hi, I'm Wendy Yee, and this week I have a few different things that I've reviewed. So I did a Catch-A-Palooza for Whistle Mountain, and that was an absolutely fabulous game. I enjoyed the positive interaction. I enjoyed the puzzle in the middle as you're building machines and you're building scaffolding together, and you want to be able to make spots that you can use as well as other people use. There's a fun little puzzle there, as well as some cool worker placement, a little bit of engine building going on your side, and resource management. So great stuff there. I didn't give it a number because it was a Catch-A-Palooza. Now, the game that I did review with official number was Airmail. Airmail is it's not a route building deliver. I guess it is a route building delivering game, but it's not a pick up and deliver game. So you're building these plane routes and you're trying to ship these goods across different district lines from one district to another. And it's got some really cool, interesting card play around the side. So I liked what was going on, and I gave it a 7. Yeah, just good, solid game, good fun. Now, also, if you want to catch up on some previous stuff that I've played, but I did not get to review on this channel, I did a rapid fire roundup. That's where I take 10 games and I review them very briefly in just like a minute or two. I give them a number so that you can see what my review was. And yeah, we just kind of like go through them real fast. So it's basically a top 10, but for specific games that I've played recently that other people reviewed and I didn't have a chance to. So that's what I did this week. It's been a cool week. There's been a lot going on, and let's see who's next.
All right, week in review. This week I took a look at the Marvel Champions Gambit and Rogue decks, which I really enjoyed. I gave them both a 9. Some of my favorite X-Men characters, and I really love how thematic so many of these hero packs for Marvel Champions are. Rogue stealing different abilities out of people's discard pile, giving her changing up different powers. Gambit throwing cards and doing extra damage. It just feels thematic. I also took a look at Summoner Wars Wayfarers and Shadow Elves, which I gave the Wayfarers I gave a 9 just because they're movement is super awesome. And then the Shadow Elves, I really enjoyed how they were like destroying walls and things like that. Make sure to check out the review for that as well. They were a 9.5 for Shadow Elves. And then I also took a look at D&D Adventure. All these high numbers. This one sucked. This was a 2. It's a terrible game that makes you kind of act out things, that like just really zany stuff. And they could have made this game so much better, especially if they're trying to act like this is an intro into D&D with like a board game setting, like cooperative board game. It didn't feel very cooperative. It felt kind of random and silly, and I hate it. It's a 2.
All right, this week I took a look at 3 different games. First up, I took a look at Fictions. Fiction is a Wordle-inspired game, if you will. And I think my takeaway from this is if you like Wordle, you'll probably like this game. If you don't like Wordle, like me, you're not going to like the game. It's very much Wordle. So I came in at a 6 on this one. It was fine. I definitely would never want to play it one-on-one with just one-on-one. I don't have a lot of fun with that. I would want to have at least a little bit of discussion with somebody else. I did also find the person that is giving the clues, if you will, just to be not to my liking, just kind of stressful, and that's not what I want out of this weight of game. So Fictions, it was fine. Rules-wise, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just not my kind of game, really. Next up, I took a look at Oh My Orchids. This is a game coming out of Singapore, and I came in at a 7.5 on it. I was really charmed by this one. I think for just a deck of cards with very simple artwork, it did well. I did find the scoring to be a little bit too much everything and the kitchen sink, but there's nothing really innovative in this game necessarily, but it does present an interesting puzzle that made me want to come back over and over again, and I just found it to be very relaxing and pleasing. So Oh My Orchids, I was a 7.5. And last up, I took a look at the newest 51st State expansion, No Man's Land. This was part of the Kickstarter, the Master Set Kickstarter that just came out, and then you can purchase it individually as well. I came in at an 8.5 on this one. I really like it. This is going to be my favorite expansion so far for 51st State. Really the only concern I had was it's not one that I want to play at the higher player counts. Maybe at 3, definitely not at 4. I think the interaction is just not going to be to my liking, but at a 2-player game, this would be my go-to. I really, really like what it brings, the whole new way to use the cards. And I love multi-use cards. This game is already excellent at that, and I think to provide me a new, clean way to use the cards that doesn't add a lot of complexity, it's just another option. It really did well. It hit a sweet spot, and it really sang in this game. So 8.5 for 51st State No Man's Land expansion. That's it for me. Let's keep it going.
Hey there, everybody. It's Mike DeLisio, and this week I was a part of 4 reviews. First up was a game called Stubborn Mules. This is a game I gave a 5 out of 10. Unfortunately, it's one that didn't really feel like it had enough decision-making going on. Essentially, you are playing as a mule and you're moving along a track and you're rolling dice and you are trying to determine whether you're either going to be the first mule to make it across the finish line, or if a shepherd gets, all the shepherds get off the board, you want to be the last mule on the board. That's really the hook. Other than that, you're rolling dice and kind of hoping. Neat production from Playtee Games with their L-Box series, but the game itself was pretty flat, unfortunately. I also reviewed Expedition 20th Century, which I also gave a 5. This is a game that kind of reminds me in some ways of Racco, which is this old game of putting cards in sequential order. And so that's essentially what you're doing in this game, is that you are putting cards in year orders that are related to some kind of historical event or element, and you're placing them on a player board. And that part of the game I like. I like moving from continent to continent and getting cards and placing them sequentially on my board. The problem comes in with the scoring. The endgame scoring is so by the numbers and trivial to feel almost insignificant. The difference between first place and last place is usually 3 or 4 points. And so if you've got this race element where you feel like you're racing to do something, and the difference between first place and second place is 5 points or 4 points, that doesn't really do it. So unfortunately, the scoring lets this one down. I also reviewed Oh My, Orchids, a small box card game about flowers from Singapore. This is a charming set collection game that doesn't really do anything innovative or new, and so that's why it didn't get a higher score, but it is one I could recommend because it is very, very easy to teach, very approachable, and it does so with a theme that I appreciate, something that while nature themes are everywhere, this is focusing on flora from Singapore, which I think gives it a nice amount of charm and makes it something that I would come back to over other games that have similar mechanisms but maybe less charm. And then finally, I reviewed Fiction. This is coming from All Play Games, and Fiction is essentially a board game version of Wordle, where one person is playing as the librarian, and they are giving a 5-letter word clue that the other players are trying to guess. The difference is that the librarian every round, and they're going to have the guessers are going to get 10 guesses or 20 minutes. They have to lie at least once. So, like Wordle, you are either saying that a letter is in the right place, or you have the right letter in the wrong place, or the letter's not in the word at all. And so you have to deduce as the guessers where the lies are, where the truths are, and as the librarian, you are trying to do so in such a way, be consistent in your lies in such a way that people cannot guess the word in 10 clues or 20 minutes. A pretty neat kind of riff on a very popular word game that I like. I like Wordle, and so therefore I was probably more predisposed to like Fiction than not. All right, well, that's it for me this week. Let's keep it moving.
What's up, everyone? I'm Chris, and I review games. Let's start off with Flashpoint. South China Sea, I gave a 7.5. A small, very easy to learn, very easy to solo, little self-contained war game from GMT. I enjoyed this one. Some people call it Twilight Struggle Light. Whatever it is, fun multi-use cards, fun triggering when you want scorings in different regions to happen. I like it. Next up, Airmail. I gave an 8. This is from Ludanova, and just a fun kind of pick up and deliver style game, but you can kind of pick up from wherever. So it's a deliver game, and it has fun route building. I really enjoy what's going on. A few different ways that you can spend the actions on your turn, or you can take a completely alternate turn as you build up over the course of the game. Really recommend it. Look into the review for that one. Those are the two main reviews that we did this week. Also did a Ketchupalooza, brought back that series on Whistle Mountain. A game that I played for the first time, Wendy and I both, so make sure to go check those out. Thanks. Let's keep going.
Hi everybody, I'm Joey Evans, and this week I only reviewed a couple of games on here. The first one was Stackin' Stuff. It's a more family weight game where you're moving into the country and you have to stack everything in the back of your box, van, and put it around. And it's really fun with kids. It's a very simple tile laying polyomino style game. Very simple. I gave it an 8.5. It's good if you like patchwork, and you can play with your family, so it's a very good introductory family style game. So again, I give it 8.5. And also we reviewed Flashpoint South China Sea, and this is by GMT Games, which makes Twilight Struggle. And I know some of you might have tuned out when I said Twilight Struggle, and some of you tuned in. So both of you, hear me out. It's actually a good game. I enjoyed it. I would honestly probably compare it a bit more to Blitzkrieg than I would Twilight Struggle because it has that push and pull mechanic. It is about 30 minutes. It's shorter than Twilight Struggle. It's simpler. It is very modern, so if you can take that theme out, if that's not going to bother you, as opposed to Twilight Struggle is older, this is fresher and newer. But I did enjoy it. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. I think I was the highest among the group here at the studio that liked it, and I gave it an 8. So those are the two games I reviewed this week.
All right, a lot of games I enjoyed this week. Ole Guacamole, a little silly party game from the Scorpion Mask. And this is one of those games where, there's cards out there with letters and you need to say words without those letters in them. 7 out of 10. Flashpoint South China Sea, kind of like a mini Twilight Struggle of sorts. Quick little fast back and forth 2-player game between China and the US. 7.5 out of 10. Dice Manor, the newest Dice Tower Essentials game. Kind of a roll dice and then allocate them and try to build a little mansion up. 8 out of 10. Hegemony, huge game here, but I liked it a lot. Very strong government theme. Very asymmetrical game. 8 out of 10. Super Skill Pinball Star Trek. I like Super Skill Pinball, so this is an 8.5, just like all the rest of them. I just enjoy this solitaire, mostly pinball game. It has an 8.5. And Fiction, also an 8.5. This is a Wordle game based on Wordle. Really well done with somebody lying. Well, the librarian giving a lie out. I really enjoy that. Also an 8.5. Roy and I took a look at, I took a look at a kids game called Make the Difference. This is a little game where you draw differences and then other people have to guess them. That's a really good kids game, 8 out of 10 from Oink. And then Roy and I took a look at the Summoner Wars newest faction, the the Shadow Elves and the Wayfarers. I really like the Wayfarers. I give them a 10. Shadow Elves, I don't like them as much on a personal level, but they're very well designed. It's a good game. We also did a Catch-a-Palooza on Whistle Mountain. I took another look at board game terms explained. Some of the folks here did a top 10 enemies of gaming, and of course, all of our live shows that went up over the course of the week. So that's what we did this past week. Folks, we're going to be out of town for the remainder of this coming week. We're at Dice Tower West. If you're there, we hope to see you. And otherwise, we'll have a few videos up, but we have almost 10,000 other videos for you to go back and watch if you missed them. Thanks so much for watching Look Back on the Dice Tower. Week in Review on the Dice Tower. I'm Tom Vassell. We'll see you next time.